Hi, and welcome to Open, the show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world to you. I'm Jonathan Calixto, and today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough. Coming up, we speak with the executive director of Day One to learn about how they are partnering with young people to end dating abuse and gender-based violence. Then we speak with a professor of economics to learn more about how the potential increase in tariffs could affect us. After that, the program director of East Concourse Older Adult Center for BronxWorks speaks on how they help seniors engage with the community while combating isolation and loneliness. And finally, the senior director of Path to Success at Rising Ground speaks on their relationship abuse prevention program. So stay tuned, all this and much more is headed your way because we're now officially open. Hello everyone, I'm Jonathan Calixto, and today is Tuesday, February 18th. You are now watching Open, a program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to you. Don't forget to stay connected with us via social media at BronxNet TV. Day One initiated its services at a time when the term dating abuse was barely in use. Launched in 2003 as the New York office of Break the Cycle, the organization began offering legal assistance to young survivors and co-educational preventative education in New York City classrooms. Here to tell us more about their work is the executive director of Day One, Ann Patterson. Thank you for joining us, Ann.
Jonathan, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited, obviously, to dive deep a little bit more into this conversation. But let's start off with telling me a little bit more about Day One and its mission.
Happily. At Day One, we are the only organization of our kind in all of New York City, in fact, all of New York State, and rare across the country. We are specifically and singularly devoted to using the entirety of our resources to engage with young New Yorkers, specifically adolescents and young adults, to engage them in conversation about how we build healthy, peaceful, equitable relationships, as well as connecting with people who are in relationships now where they are being harmed by their partner. We are equally invested in prevention as well as healing and support.
Yeah, with obviously that demographic that you were mentioning, what does that age range kind of look like, if you could just expand on that a little bit more?
Absolutely. I think that when we explicitly invest in engaging New Yorkers who are under 24, we do so because those are the times when we're first experimenting with dating and other sort of romantic relationships. And we think it's really important that we pull out the wisdom that inherently lives in young people, as well as sort of complementing that wisdom with our own sort of knowledge, education that we've grown, that we've accrued as adults. So the young people are really equipped to enter into healthy relationships, but like with all of us, they need care, they need support, they need knowledge and education to just amplify what they already know is right.
Yeah, when you talk about that support and knowledge too, I love seeing that there are 4 different categories that you do work with these young people, from community education, supportive services, legal advocacy, and even leadership development. Yeah. What are some of those core programs that you kind of work with them in?
Well, you know, we at Day One are boldly aspirational. We believe that we have to end gender-based violence, we have to take a really multifaceted approach to engaging young people. And all of the programming you spoke about, our preventive education that we do in schools, middle schools, and high schools, and youth-facing community settings in all 5 boroughs of New York City, as well as direct therapeutic work with young survivors, legal representation for young survivors in family court, as well as really naming that there are strong leadership skills that reside in all young people. And it's really young people who are going to be essential in striving to end gender-based violence by using their voice in activist and advocacy contexts.
Yeah, some of those programs too include the Survivor Network and leadership development initiatives. Can you dive deep a little bit more into especially the Survivor Network? How does that work? How are they a part of that as well?
So we know that all of our programming at Day One is stronger, is more impactful and in many ways far more legitimate if it's fully informed by the voices of young survivors. So we convene a group of young survivors who have accessed our programming or some who haven't accessed our program. And we, as we're building programming, as we are evolving programming, that they are an influential voice in how we do that. Because we don't want to build programming that doesn't feel to be responsive to their needs, their wants in the moment.
Yeah. When you also talk about these programs, I was reading into a little bit more, and you have this youth advisory board.
Yes.
How is that obviously an essential part of them being a part of this initiative, leadership skills, but also getting paid while they're doing that?
Absolutely.
As well?
And that what feels really important. I think so many youth serving organizations desperately want all of their programming to be informed by a diverse chorus of young voices, but don't necessarily have the capacity to compensate those voices. And we want to do that. And all youth serving organizations want to do that as well. But we recognize that what you're contributing to us has real value, and we want to compensate you for the value that you're lending. So we bring our youth advisory board together every month, and they are really essential also to our preventive outreach as well. You will see them at any day one event. They'll be at a tabling event. They'll be speaking on their experiences, but they're a real integral and essential part of the day one community.
Yeah, when you talk about experiences as well, obviously you have served, there's over 16,000 young people. Any stories that you can share with us, obviously, about how it's impacted you or how you've even seen them kind of benefit from this program?
Absolutely. I think that it's some of the most eye-opening and powerful experiences that I've been able to witness is when you're in a classroom and one of our community educators, or you're in a community-based setting and you're listening to one of our community educators really engage in dialogue about how we go about building healthy, consent-driven relationships. And young people, you'll see a shift. You'll see a widening of the eyes. You'll see a sort of a stilling of the body. And you'll see this physical change as they're able to really relate to the words and the wisdom that's being shared by the community educators. And then when that educational training is over, they commonly will approach the community educator and talk about how this has shifted the way that they understand a relationship that they're currently in, and that this has given them the tools that they need to navigate that relationship. It's really powerful to sort of feel and watch that physical shift.
Yeah, and I would encourage viewers to even go on the website. I know you have a section of the testimonials, so it was very beautiful to read through those as well. When you talk about the success of these programs, how essential are the partnership with the schools, organizations, to obviously bringing these young people to the next level of success and leadership?
We can't do this work alone. You know, I think that each and every one of us needs to prioritize having conversations with young people so that they are equipped to build these healthy relationships. And we need to be in the places where young people are. So we need to be in middle schools. We need to be in high schools. We need to be in community-based settings. And having these partnerships with these organizations really gives us entrance to these places where young people are, so we can go where they are as expecting them to come to where we are.
Yeah, now of course, when we talk about the success, there are a few things coming up with February as well being Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. What is this open mic event? What can people expect on February 26th?
So this is probably arguably one of the most important months of the year in the day one calendar. It's Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. And so every year we want to honor this by amplifying the voices of young people. And this year, as we've done in years past, we have an open mic event. It's at the Blue Stockings Cooperative in the Lower East Side. It's on Wednesday, February 26th, 6 p.m. All are welcome, and we're going to be featuring spoken word, poetry, prose that's all been written by young people, and it speaks on themes of liberation and love and connection. It's really both really high quality art and a really sort of vibrant, loving community event. So all are welcome. Come on, come all.
Yes, on February 26th.
February 26th, 6 p.m., Blue Stockings Cooperative in Manhattan. Lower East Side.
Amazing. Now, of course, also later on this year, if people want to join, there is also a gala. Talk to me a little bit about how that supports.
It's our fanciest event of the year. And while it is sort of like an elegant celebration of the work that we do, it's held every year, sort of in the spring. We're holding it this year, May 20th, 6 p.m. at Guastavino's, which is an iconic Manhattan celebration space. But what it does, it brings together a variety of Day One supporters to really learn more about the work that we've done this year, celebrate the successes, look sort of staunchly at the challenges that we have ahead of us, and work to raise the money that we need to do this essential life-affirming work, especially in a time like this when governmental funding is precarious at best. We look to have the support of individual donors so that this work can continue.
Yeah, obviously you've shared so many incredible resources, some upcoming events.
Yeah.
For our viewers watching, if they want to get involved, how can they go about connecting with Day One?
We are very active on social media. You can't be a youth-serving organization unless you are very active on social media. So check out any of our social media handles at Day One NY. We're on Instagram. We're on LinkedIn. We're not really on Facebook. And we also have a really information-rich website that everyone's welcome to go to, explore all of the resources that we have there, learn more about Day One, and just stay connected to us. We want to be connected to as many young New Yorkers as possible.
Yeah. Now, Anne, of course, before we go, I am so interested too in what would be your advice. Obviously, when we talk about gender-based violence, dating abuse, it sometimes can be a taboo topic that people are afraid to talk about. What can families, children, young people, start doing now to start having those conversations?
And I think feel that discomfort and push through it anyway. I think just summon that up. And if you're coming from a place of gentleness, of love, and of deep investment in the well-being of young people in your life and people around you, just have the conversation, start it up. Ask people about what they think about dating. Ask people if they know what it feels like. What do you think it will feel like to be in a dating relationship where you feel heard, where you feel seen, where you feel cared for? Because a lot of us don't know, especially if we haven't been in a dating relationship before. We don't know what a healthy relationship looks like, feels like, sounds like. So start that conversation. And I think that people will be surprised at how receptive young people are to talking about this.
Yeah. Now, of course, obviously, like you mentioned, one thing is we can continue to talk about these conversations and these topics, you know, to normalize it. There is also clinical services that people can look to, especially young people, to heal. What are those and how does that help?
Yes, we really recognize that that young people are deserving of having the access to the highest quality therapeutic services that they can get. And we offer those at Day One, but we offer them for free. We offer them in the language that they speak. We offer them from a clinician who looks like them and often shares their own survivorship and life experience. And if they were to pursue, if they were to find a therapist, sort of like in a private practice context, they should have access to the most cutting-edge therapeutic interventions, and we offer those also as Day One because they're deserving of that as well. And so we use techniques like EMDR, which is a somatic intervention for trauma survivors. We use interventions like trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, which is really designed to support the trauma symptoms, working to integrate those trauma symptoms into the lives of young people. We also use a lot of mindfulness practices and a lot of just real emphasis on building loving relationships.
Yeah. Now, of course, we touched on so many different things, and I continue to be inspired for more questions, but I guess to wrap up, what advice would you give? We talked about normalizing the topic, but what advice would you give young people seeking help?
I would give that if they're having any feelings of guilt, shame, or responsibility, to not ignore those feelings or sensations, but to know that that should not keep them from seeking support. And this is true for someone who is partnered with someone who is causing them harm. But it's also equally true for someone who is in relationship and they know that they're harming that person. They deserve support as well, especially young people. So you might feel the shame, you might feel the guilt, you might feel the responsibility, but don't let that be a barrier for you reaching out, because we are here and we're invested in your holistic well-being.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Anne, for
Thanks,
joining
Jonathan.
us today. To learn more about their services, please go to their website at day1ny.org. Don't go away. We'll be back with more Open after this.
We're going to start the show right now. This is my favorite part. Ready in 5, 4, 3, 2. Hey, this is Angel, and I am one of the instructors for the in-studio production. Here at BronxNet, we offer classes that can help you elevate, expand, and start your television career. All you have to do is sign up at BronxNet.org/education. For the past 7 years, I have been in various productions, spanning from talk shows, independent films, news reports, art displays, teachings, musical performances, and many more. Ain't that right, Angel? Yeah, you're absolutely right, Angel. There are a lot of creative individuals that we're just waiting to sign up for the class. And if I may, can I also express thank you, Angel. That's all the time we have left. Visit BronxNet.org/education and become a producer by taking the course. The class I offer is also in English, en español y también bilingüe. Nos vemos en la próxima clase.
Welcome back. On February 1st of this year, President Donald Trump ended weeks of speculation by announcing 25% tariffs on select imports from Mexico, Canada, and China. However, late on the morning of February 2nd, it was announced that the imposition of these tariffs on imports from Mexico would be delayed by a month. And later the same day, tariffs on Canadian imports were also suspended by 30 days. We are now joined by Karen David, professor of economics at BCC, who can help explain this matter further. Thank you for joining us, Karen.
Oh, so nice. Thank you, Jonathan. So nice to be here, too.
Yeah, I know, obviously, the topic of tariffs we're seeing it all over the headlines. It's always evolving day to day.
It's fluid, yeah.
Yeah, but to get started, I mean, can you just break down a little bit about what are tariffs?
Okay, so tariffs are taxes on imported goods. So a tariff is basically a tax, but every product that comes from abroad, if instead of selling an apple for $1, it might be $1.50, and the 50 cents would be the tariffs, which is the tax.
Yeah, and obviously I think that is important because throughout the whole conversation, we are going to talk about how things are fluid in the sense you said, like flowing, changing. To get us started though, catch us up to date. I know I gave a little bit of history about since February.
That's exactly. At first it was announced 25% on products from Canada and Mexico, which are United States allies, and we had the NAFTA agreements with them, the free trade agreements with them, and 10% on Chinese products. And then, as you suggested, as you said, it was after President Trump spoke with the president of Mexico and the president of Canada. There were further negotiations, and they delayed for 30 days those 25% taxes on their products. And meanwhile, just the other day, just yesterday, it was announced that there'll be 25% on steel and aluminum from every single country coming inside the United States. And obviously this affects Canada and Mexico because they're a huge exporter of aluminum and steel to the United States and China too. Yes.
Which I love that you even mentioned that because we are going to expand on it a little bit later. But I'm always curious when I hear about tariffs and it's shifting. I am curious always about how it affects different sectors like agriculture, automotive, technology. And I would love for you to break that down for me as well. But when we hear about what's been going on with President Trump, taking on these tariffs, changing things that we have known, the agreements, what are the motives behind the administration, you'd say, for doing this?
So, first of all, originally what they said, it was two things: fight against immigration and also because of fentanyl, the drugs coming in the United States, which was a bizarre answer. Canada is not a major role player in the drugs, the flight with drugs or fentanyl coming to the United States usually comes from China, Mexico, and the United States. But Canada, because it bordered with the United States, it has been some incidents in the past, but they're not a major component of that. But I think later on when he spoke about, I think the idea was to even out the trade balance because the United States has a trade deficit, so he wants to even out that. He also want to retaliate. China, also the conversation with China is different than Mexico and Canada. And with China, they put tariffs on American products, so there is a retaliation component here. So that's a separate story, yes.
Yeah, and I feel like that's something I've always been seeing and hearing. A lot of it is the either fear, retaliation, this kind of...
We call retaliatory tariffs that exist all the time, and that's what's going to happen now. You know?
Obviously, and I thank you so much for even being here to talk about that and break that down for us. But now, let's get into, obviously, these different sectors that are affected. Starting off with agriculture, how has it impacted our U.S. farmers?
So first of all, just so you know, there are many American farmers who actually moved to Mexico in the last few years because they couldn't find workers to work in their farms and they found it easier. And suddenly their product coming to the United States is going to get taxed 25%. 90% of avocados in the United States come from Mexico. So the price of these products are going to go up right away. But the way the farmer is going to get, many farmers in the United States, they export their products to Canada, to Mexico, around the world. And they're going to be affected mainly because of retaliatory tariffs. Canada and Mexico and China going to put a retaliatory tariff on these American products. So for example, United States sells soybeans to China. So suddenly China is going to put a tax on these American products. So soybean is going to be more expensive in China. So China might say, you know what, we're not going to buy American soybean. We're going to go and buy from Brazil. So that farmer is going to lose market share in China. They are going to lose income that way. So, and not only that, because crops you produce way in advance, suddenly they overproduce soybeans. When they overproduce soybeans, prices of soybeans go down. So not only they're losing some of their clients, the prices of soybean goes down. So to offset this income, very often the United States gives subsidies. The government gives subsidies to help them out. Okay. But it's not a permanent solution, and they're not giving enough subsidies, so the farmers are going to lose. Same thing, corn and pork is sold to Canada and Mexico, these industries also. Now, not only that, many inputs come from China, like chemical, pesticides for the farmers. These are going to be taxed. So the price of production, cost of production for the farmers is going to increase.
It's such a ongoing effect with so many different
aspects. And they lose market share. They lose what we call comparative disadvantage. The product is going to be less competitive. They might never be able to sell. Even if there is a further different administration that reverse these taxes, these tariffs, they might lose their spot and not be able to sell it. Yeah. So they are going to be suffering for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, like you mentioned, it's so sometimes bizarre to hear about things that we obviously shop for, then now the prices increases, but what's happening also behind the scenes with these tariffs. Recently, too, there was a 25% tariff announced for global metals.
Yes.
Talk to me about how that impacts as well the automotive industry.
So the auto industry obviously rely on steel and aluminum from the United States and from foreign countries to produce cars. So in the most simple level, cost of production of cars is going to increase. When cost of production increases, supply goes down, prices go up. So maybe the company is going to take some of these losses, but most likely is going to pass on to the consumer, which is us. Prices of cars are going to go up. It's not just cars. Construction also uses these products, and they're going to be affected that way. Now, the idea was to protect the American industry. So U.S. Steel, these are good news for them because they're going to be able to increase production. They're going to be able to hire people. But their price also going to go up, interesting enough, because if there is less steel coming to the United States, there is less competition, there is less variety of products, so there is less products, prices of the local products are going to go up. So no matter how we look at it, the consumer is going to actually absorb a lot of these price increase. I want to talk a little bit about that. So not only the main result of this, all these taxes, all these tariffs is increasing prices. cost of production increases, and that very often firms offset this loss by increasing prices to consumer. Energy prices are going to go up. A lot of United States buy crude oil and natural gas from Canada. So right there at the pump, prices are going to go up. Heating your homes might go up. And then finally, what we call retaliatory tariffs. So they're going to put tariffs on all American products. So when, Kentucky bourbon goes to Canada, they already said they're not buying that, So then a lot of firms that export to Canada and Mexico, they're going to suffer.
So we're also seeing it right back,
of course,
directed at us. With that, you talked a little bit about, obviously, these price increases. What is the impact that something like this has on the average American consumer?
So, as I said, gasoline prices might go up. Heating your home might go up because we're a huge importer of gas from Canada. And if we're gonna tariff them, they're gonna put they're gonna put taxes for our products. So it's gonna go both ways. So, but we import from, we do import from Canada natural gas and crude oil. So these are gonna be tariffs if those 25% go ahead. And then right away at the gasoline, prices are gonna go up and heating your home. And finally, what I said, retaliatory tariffs. So for American exporters of products to Canada and to Mexico, they obviously going to put taxes on those products. So we're going to lose competitiveness. They're not going to buy American products. So those firms who are exporting, suddenly they're going to lose all these customers. And to offset their prices, they might increase prices for their products to Americans because they're losing a lot of money.
Yeah, and obviously when we talk about even the average American, I think there's also a big concern about the impact on the workforce, whether that means layoffs, relocations to be able to produce these items. Do you see that being something that can happen?
Yes, a little bit. Yes, because all the firms that export to Canada and to Mexico, suddenly they're going to lose market share. They are not going to sell as much because there'll be retaliatory tariffs. So if they're going to producing less means letting go of people. Now the car industry also, we spoke about the car industry. They use a lot of steel, and that's all over the world. They use steel from the United States, but they use foreign steel as well. So if cost of production is going to increase and they're going to supply less and they're going to produce less, then one way to produce less is letting go of workers. So there is a very good chance that some people are going to lose their jobs in the auto industry or construction even.
Yeah, now, of course, we see, like I mentioned, so many different headlines, so many information that's happening day to day. New things are coming out. And I'm so grateful that you were able to break down some of these things for us. For viewers watching, when they obviously look back and are listening, what would you say, what lesson can they take away from obviously hearing and seeing what's going on right now?
Well, I just, a lot of things come to the news, but even though we have free trade agreements with Mexico and Canada, there's always been taxes and tariffs here and there. And I don't think people should be alarmed right away, but I think the main issue here is going to be increasing prices, and obviously it affects the American consumer. And what's interesting is that one of Trump's main fights, he says, he actually almost won the election on that. He said, I am going to fight inflation. And this is going to we're going to have to hold on, because I don't think he's going to be able to fight inflation so quickly if those tariffs are going to take place. Wow. Let's see what's going to happen to Mexico and Canada. They gave 30 days, which is actually a good sign. Hopefully it won't. Also, it will be nice to honor these agreements that he actually signed in 2018, the free trade agreement, and let's see what's going to happen there too.
Yeah, we'll definitely stay posted and obviously up to date with what is happening. Again, thank you so much, Karen, for sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you. Thanks for calling me. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Stay tuned. We have more open for you right after this.
.7% of Bronxites currently experience food insecurity. Meanwhile, instead of these nice, colorful foods, this is the best food that they have access to. If this sounds like you, there are a bunch of resources to get healthy food for free or cheap. If you want to help, you might consider donating or volunteering in one of these places. Community fridges like this one are all over the city, and allow New Yorkers to conveniently donate extra food to people who might need it. Go to this link and find your nearest one. Food banks and pop-up events like these provide millions of healthy meals to families in need. These organizations are distributing meals to Bronxites as we speak, and are always accepting donations and volunteers.
Welcome back. BronxWorks operates multiple older adult centers to help seniors engage with the community while combating isolation and loneliness. The older adult centers offer recreation, workshops, meals, trips, celebrations, and monthly food pantries. Joining me now to tell us all that they do is the program director at East Concourse Older Adult Center for BronxWorks, Solomon Smart.
Hi.
Solomon, thank you for being with us
Thank
today.
you for having me, yeah.
Yeah, now I know I shared a little bit about obviously some of the work that BronxWorks does, but talk to me about obviously what are some of the initiatives you're doing? How do you also work with our older seniors?
So I run an older adult center in the Bronx. I've been doing that for 20 years now. And BronxWorks runs 10 older adult centers. Actually, 7 older adult centers and 3 older centers that are considered naturally occurring retirement communities where people age in place in those apartments. And yeah, they're gathering places where older adults can combat isolation, meet new friends, access benefits and services. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, as I was mentioning to you before we got started, that as a field reporter previously too, we get to go out in the field and obviously cover these events. And we've been to some of the BronxWorks, so we get to see that connection and how you obviously take care of our older seniors.
Yeah.
Especially now as well with the winter happening and getting these cold winters.
Yeah.
How is BronxWorks also stepping in to support them?
Well, one of the things that we want to think about when we think of older adults, sometimes we can think of them as someone other. We just have to think of ourselves. Sure, no one likes to be cold, but no one likes to stay home. And so our centers provide a place where they can come and they can gather. They know they can get there safely. And we just make accommodations to allow them to get there. We have transportation services in some of our older adult centers, and there's access to Access-A-Ride. And we just remain open and remain providing services for our older adults, even during these cold months.
And can you expand on that as well, the transportation aspect? You know, how important is it for them to have a way to get to these centers, especially on these cold days? How does that work?
Well, the wonderful thing is that there are over 300 older adult centers throughout New York City. And so BronxWorks having 7 of them, they're in various different locations. So chances are any older adult is very close to an older adult center. We're very accessible by public transportation, but also that extra measure of having transportation services for those who aren't able to access those traditional means of getting to the centers is vitally important. And so they just contact our centers, work with a caseworker, and they can be set up for those benefits,
Yeah, that's incredible to hear. I mean, with that as well, I wonder, what is the age group that you work with when we talk about our older seniors, as I like to say, our wiser seniors?
So anyone 60 and older can participate in an older adult center. And you just have to be have an address within the 5 boroughs of New York City.
Okay, and to be able to obviously access those services, do they have someone helping them facilitate obviously getting to BronxWorks or finding out more about the additional programs that you offer?
Yeah, I mean, one could start out going to our website, BronxWorks.org. They can find all the addresses and phone numbers on our website for our older adult centers, and you can call and you can speak with someone there, and we can get you all that you need in order to get started.
Yeah, that's great. Now, of course, we talked about addressing that part of the winter, which is very top of mind for a lot of adult seniors. What other programs and activities do you have as well as BronxWorks?
At BronxWorks as a whole?
Yeah, well, for our seniors, of course,
For
that
our
they can take
seniors,
advantage
yeah.
of.
So all of our older adult centers, we offer all kinds of activities, all kinds of celebrations, as well as case management services where we will assist them with applications to any benefits, maybe reapplications and renewals, housing assistance, even some legal assistance opportunities. And we also provide food pantries once a month, as well as meals, including breakfast and lunch, Monday through Friday.
Wow. How important and why is it important to address that nutrition aspect, you'd say, with our seniors?
So, you know, food insecurity is a huge issue among all people, particularly older adults. And every older adult that comes in, they are immediately screened for their nutrition services. And depending on how that score goes, they'll get an automatic referral. And it's just vitally important because sometimes people need food and they won't let you know, or they've become so accustomed to living with less than what's good for them that they don't even know that they're actually experiencing food insecurity and that there's opportunity to address that need.
Yeah, I think something that you mentioned there too is that sometimes they might be aware that they have this need, but maybe don't even know how to address it, how to get those services.
Absolutely.
And I think that also connects to that part of the isolation and sometimes feeling alone.
Yes.
How does BronxWorks work with them to kind of build this community and get them out there?
Well, you know, I was thinking about it earlier. There's an old show called Cheers, and the song said, a place where everyone knows your name and they're always glad you came. And that's what you can expect in an older adult center. You'll go in, it's a wonderful atmosphere, and it just lifts your spirits immediately. And there are all kinds of activities that you can do and people that you can meet your age, maybe older, as well as interact with the staff. And then you can find out opportunities that you can engage with. Maybe you have an old dream you want to fulfill. You know, you wanted to act. Well, we provide drama classes. You want to learn about technology. Well, we have a technology course that's actually focusing on artificial intelligence, right? And so there's so many things that we can do. And February is actually National Older Adult Independence Month. So there are many things that we're doing to foster and promote the independence of older adults.
Wow. With obviously February touching on that, I mean, talk to me about what can people expect, any other programs happening right now to address that and to bring more awareness to it?
Yeah, I actually, and I wrote this down and I want to just look at it so I get it right.
Yeah, of course.
One of our centers is actually taking people to the Harlem International Museum of Black History, obviously honoring Black history. And our center, we're actually doing something, we do a thing called Tea Time Talk, where we just gather people together, we have coffee, we have tea, and we talk about certain things. And this month, on the 20th, at our center, the East Concourse Older Adult Center, we've invited the New York Police Department to come in and talk to our older adults about safety in the community, what their needs are and how that, and they can communicate that with the NYPD and just continue that relationship. We also have the fire department coming in, talking with our older adults. How can they have fire safety prevention in their homes? And so we're doing all of these things to promote the ability for older adults to remain independent as long as they can.
Yeah, that sounds like a great lineup, of course, of events coming up. With what you've shared as well, Solomon, I'd love to know, you have a 27-year history with BronxWorks.
Yeah.
Going up on 28, you mentioned, you know, this year, in August. How does that feel when you get to see these seniors take advantage of obviously these programs? It helped them out. Any success stories?
Yeah, we definitely have success stories. I'll just call her Monica for the sake of anonymity. She was isolated in her home. She recently had come to the United States. She didn't know what was available to her until she was walking on the street and she ran into another older adult who told her about our center. She came, and when she was first there, and this is a common experience, we see people come in facing the difficulties of life. Maybe they're a little weighed down, maybe not in the best of spirits. And this happened with Monica. And you could just see almost immediately for her, her countenance lifted. There was joy in her face. She said she could not believe that this place was available. And not only that, she's met so many friends and people that she actually likes and people that she's connected with outside of the center. And this is something that many people don't understand. They hear Older Adult Center. They think, oh, that's a place where people go to die. No, it's where people come to live, where people come to experience vitality and come to new life. And I would challenge people, come visit. If you have an older adult member and you're trying to get them out of the house, bring them to an older adult center and let them see what's happening.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that,
Yeah.
obviously, story about Monica.
Yeah.
When you talk about being able to bring someone to experience these programs,
Yeah.
is there anything people have to do to sign up to be able to attend, to get to like kind of trial it out?
Yeah.
How does that kind of work?
So
with the
yeah,
community?
we encourage all older adults and even their families, come visit the center. You can visit for a couple of days, check it out, see what it's like, see how you like it, ask questions, and then you can register to participate in our activities. And that just requires identification and just some, contact information so that we can just make sure that you're safe there.
Yeah. Now, of course, with that as well, we are in the Bronx. It's all
Yes.
about community here.
Yeah.
What can the community do as well to support the work that BronxWorks does?
Well, again, I would say first, start off at our website, BronxWorks.org. You can also follow us on our social media, on our Instagram. Our handle is BronxWorks, @BronxWorks. And then I would say, take up that challenge, bring an older adult to an older adult center. Look at one of our centers and come visit. Even if you don't bring an older adult, come volunteer. Reach out to our development department and find a way that you can volunteer at our older adult center. And then finally, every May, BronxWorks does a fundraising event. Reach out to us and see how you can contribute to that fundraising event, which provides unrestricted funds so that BronxWorks can expand the good work that we're doing with older adults and others in the community.
Yeah, I'm inspired even by our
Yeah.
conversation, Solomon. And,
Yeah.
I asked you earlier as well about a success story in a
Yes.
sense, and you shared Monica's journey. But I'd like to go back to you. Obviously, being in this industry for over 20 years
Yeah.
at that, what got you inspired to join this industry, and what has that
I
been
love
like?
to tell this story. I got in by accident. I didn't even know what an older adult center was before I got in. And it was an opportunity that was opened up to me in BronxWorks, which has always been a great organization to work with. And as soon as I got there, I just felt like I was made to do this work. I love interacting with the older adults as well as my staff. I love being able to provide them with opportunities to simply enjoy life. I tell people my job is to have fun, and there's some paperwork involved. I've loved every minute of it, and I never would have thought of it even when I was in college.
Wow, that's a beautiful story. I mean, you shared so many gems with us today in
Yeah.
this conversation. For our viewers watching, if they could take away one thing about the Older Adult Center, its mission, what would you say? What would you want them to take away?
I would want them to take away, so many people plan to retire, but they don't know what they're going to do in their retirement. And an older adult center is a wonderful opportunity to maintain your vitality, your joy, to fulfill dreams and visions that you thought maybe you couldn't fulfill, and to explore new avenues in your life. That's what I would want people to take away.
Yeah, and something that you said earlier too was that people think that when they come to these centers, it's for our older seniors, our wiser seniors to die, but no, it's to live.
It's to live.
We definitely picked that up. So thank you so much
Yeah.
again, Solomon, for joining us today.
Absolutely, Jonathan. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. To learn more about the services for older adult centers, please visit the website BronxWorks.org. We have to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Open after this.
What's up, creative family? Discover your voice with BronxNet Community Media classes. Are you ready to bring your ideas to life? At BronxNet, we offer television production classes for community members ages 18 and over, empowering you to share your vision with the world. Get certified in field production, in-studio production, and our new exciting addition, podcast production. Once certified, you can create your own show to air on one of our 6 TV channels. It all starts with our free Unleash Your Ideas Masterclass, designed to help you plan your show idea and set you up for success on your production journey. This class is offered at the beginning of each month for your convenience. Our dedicated BronxNet team is here to support, encourage, and uplift you every step of the way. Join us and become a part of the creative force that engages and inspires the Bronx community and beyond. Sign up today and start your media journey with BronxNet. Visit bronxnet.org/education to learn more and register. Let's create something amazing together.
Welcome back. February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, an annual month-long effort that focuses on advocacy and education to stop dating abuse. Before it starts, to help support those in need, Rising Ground's Paths to Success programs includes the Relationship Abuse Prevention Program in high schools and middle schools throughout NYC, and including the Bronx. Here to tell us more is the Senior Director of Paths to Success at Rising Ground, MaryAnn Van Nostrand. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
Yeah, now, of course, this is a topic that should be talked about, I feel like, all year long. But talk to me about the importance of February. How does that mark us bringing more awareness, education to it?
Yeah, so February, as you said, is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. And the whole purpose of this month really is to bring awareness to this idea of healthy relationships and how do we engage young people in having conversations about healthy relationships, in learning about healthy relationships, and learning how to not only have healthy relationships with themselves, but have healthy relationships with one another. And so it's really what it's about, is just engaging young people in conversation.
Yeah, and I was shocked to hear even some of the statistics that is out there. We have it showing that 1 in 3 U.S. teens will experience abuse. When we hear those numbers, especially it affecting our teens, why do you think dating violence is so common but yet overlooked at the same time?
Yeah, so 1 in 3 teens will experience some form of dating violence. So that could include physical violence, emotional abuse, verbal, digital. There's all different types of abuse that a young person can experience. And I think there's a couple things that it's sort of more overlooked. One, I think it's that we're just not having these conversations. There's still so much stigma around talking about relationships, regardless of age, but especially with young people. And I think oftentimes adults tend to sort of hold judgment or maybe belittle a relationship, right? How often do we tell young people, like, you're too young to know what love is? And when the reality is they are engaging in relationships. And if we're not talking about the relationships, if we're not talking about what a healthy relationship looks like, young people don't know. I didn't grow up having these conversations.
So it was so taboo. That's why I'm like, sometimes it's, we can't even blame or fault anyone because it wasn't talked about.
Exactly.
Exactly. And I love that you shared how abuse can look in different forms. It's not just physical. Talk to me about the misconceptions that we usually have as well when it comes to this abuse.
Yeah, I think often what we hear from young people is like, well, my partner's not hitting me, so it's not an abusive relationship. When really abuse is about one person trying to gain and maintain power and control over their partner. And that pattern of power and control can show up in so many ways in a relationship. It can show up, as I was saying before, in verbal form, physical, emotional, mental, sexual abuse. Now we see more and more digital abuse. Yeah. And so there's so many ways that it shows up. And so I think that's part of it too, right? We don't know, if young people don't know what to look for, if they don't know how to say like, oh, you know, that control is actually a form of abuse, right? Yeah. Oftentimes we'll hear young people say, oh, my partner wants my passwords because they love me, or my partner controls where I go or who I'm friends with because they care about me, right? When we can expand those conversations to think about, well, maybe, right? Maybe it's a form of how someone shows love, or maybe if underneath that is this idea of power and control, then there's something more here that we need to talk about, right? There's something we need to explore here.
Yeah, when you talk about those even factors and things that can make us start to question and be like, well, maybe this isn't right, those can be called even red flags. Any other red flags that you would say a viewer or someone who has experienced it should kind of look out for?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of examples we can give of what abuse in relationships look like. I think what we have to keep in mind is that relationships exist on a spectrum, right? And so what we're talking about are behaviors. There are healthy behaviors in relationships, there are unhealthy behaviors in relationships, and there are abusive behaviors in relationships. So I always want to be careful that we're not labeling a relationship based on something that exists more on a spectrum. You can have a little bit of everything in your relationship and it can look all different sorts of ways. What we want is we want to engage young people in being able to recognize the patterns so that they can move towards healthier behaviors with one another, right? Healthier behaviors with their partners. And so there are some red flags or some signs that are sort of maybe a higher risk that we worry about, right? So a partner who has harmed pets in their past, a partner who has access to a weapon, a partner who uses choking as a tactic of control. Those are some of the signs that correlate to like higher risks of lethality. But really what we're looking at is the behaviors in a relationship and whether or not that one partner is trying to gain or maintain power and control. So really that's what we focus on, right? Young people in our workshops, they might raise their hand and say, oh, but is this abuse? Is this abuse? And really what we say back to them is one partner trying to control the other? Yeah. That's what we always want to come back to. That's where we're looking at abusive relationships.
Yeah, and I think it was important even that you noted that it is a spectrum, you know, just for people to be able to kind of recognize and see. You talked a little bit about too how social media plays a part now. How have you seen it show up, social media and even the advancement of technology?
Yeah, for sure. Social media is such a huge part of our young people's lives, right? There's no getting rid of it. There's no, you know, it's what it is, right? It's part of who they are. And there's some really powerful parts of social media that are really positive. And then there are other things that, you know, parents might be more concerned about. I think some of the positive parts of social media is that young people have access to information that they've never had before. So in the 9 years that I've been doing this work, every time I'm interacting with young people, I think to myself, like, wow, these young people are so informed these days. Like sometimes they're teaching me things, right? Like they're at their fingertips, they have a world of information. And so they do find out things. They do know more and more, you know, every year I feel like young people know more and more. So there's that positive piece of it. Also, young people have access to communities that they might not have access to, right? Like a young person might not have a close group of friends at school, whereas online they find people that relate to them. So there's some positives. The other side of it, though, is that we really have to be mindful of what young people, how they're using technology and what they have access to. There's always that fear, I think especially for like older folks, there's always that fear of we don't know who's on the other side of that, right? So we don't know who our young people are always engaging with. And then also the cyberbullying. It's real, right? And it's happening. And you know, young people come into school. Normally the school day ends at 3 o'clock and young people go home, but now they come back to school the next day with screenshots of the things that are, you know, still going on all through the day after school. So they have access to one another all the time.
Wow.
And
I think it's so important that you even mentioned that too. Obviously how social media shows up, but the school factor as well. I know with Rising Ground, there are programs that are directed at students, you know, to help them as well. Talk to me a little bit about those programs and how you are working with them, educating them about what's right for them.
Yeah, so we have a couple of school-based programs. We have the RAP program, which is the Relationship Abuse Prevention Program, and then we have the Early RAP program. And so RAP and Early RAP are in middle schools and high schools around New York City, including here in the Bronx. And with the RAP program, what we do is we take social work clinicians and we place them in schools. And so they provide both education, so they do workshops with young people around what is abuse, what does it look like, what are healthy relationships, what is consent, sexual violence, we talk about things like that, as well as they provide counseling services for young people. Both young people who might have experienced relationship abuse, as well as young people who might be causing harm in a relationship and want to be able to do better, want to be able to learn how to have healthier relationships. So that's our RAP program. And then Early RAP is very similar. They provide workshops in middle schools all around New York City. And so they're providing tons of workshops on consent, body autonomy, relationship abuse, healthy relationships, all sorts of parts of just having healthy relationships with oneself and with others.
Yeah, obviously through these RAP programs, even the Early RAP program, what do those conversations look like and how receptive are they to hearing and learning about what you're educating them on and, you know, any experiences that really stood out to you?
Yeah, so I actually started as a RAP coordinator. So I started my work in a middle school in Brooklyn. I think the program is incredible. So it's bringing these conversations that, as you said before, are taboo conversations that you and I probably didn't have as young people, and it's bringing them to young people. We're coming in classrooms, and it's nice because we're not a teacher, right? We're not an educator. We don't have the same sort of we don't show up the same way in the classroom. We kind of can have a little bit more of a relaxed environment. We think of it as like, we're here to provide you information. You can take that information, you can leave that information, that's up to you. But it's really engaging, and the young people love to be able to talk about their experiences. They ask tons of questions. They really want to know more. And so I think young people love it. I think some of the moments for me as a rap coordinator being in a school, it's those aha moments that young people have. You know, they're sitting in the classroom and they're receiving this information from you, and you can actually see the wheels turning. You can see them really starting to put things together, really starting to understand things. And then the other piece of it, I remember one time I had a young person who knocked on my door, and she had seen another student crying in the hall, and she brought her to my office to be able to get counseling support. And so I think those are the powerful moments, right? Because peers are going to go to their friends for advice. That's just the way it is to be a teenager, right? That's never changed. And so if our young people know what to look for, know what the signs are of healthy and unhealthy relationships, when their peers come to them and they say, this is what I'm experiencing, or this is what's happening, that young person can guide them to a supportive adult. They know what to hear. They know what to look for.
Yeah, when you talk about leaning obviously on someone like your peer, I know also parents and guardians might want to also be a part of supporting them and joining that conversation.
Yeah.
What advice would you give them about obviously educating teens on healthy relationships or even the signs of abuse?
Yeah, I would say it's never too early to start the conversation. And like, give your young person credit. Like, teenagers, honestly, they never want to talk to their parents, or rarely want to talk to their parents, right? It's not comfortable, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be comfortable. I would tell parents to not give up, to still try. Sometimes it's easier to talk to your teen about their friends' relationships than their own relationship. So maybe that's a place to start. Sometimes maybe you're watching a movie together as a family, and maybe you talk about the relationship that you just witnessed in the movie. Maybe you get curious and you ask your young person questions about what they think about that relationship, or what they would do if they were in that situation, how they understand the relationship they just saw. So if you can make it about other things other than themselves, it might be a little bit easier as a starting point. And I think if we normalize these conversations, if we have these conversations on a regular basis at home, it becomes more and more comfortable, and young people are more willing to then come to their parents when they're experiencing something in a relationship.
Yeah, I love that word of normalizing it as well, and just making it something that we can talk about. For our young viewers, obviously, and people watching, listening maybe even, what advice would you give them if they're starting to maybe see some of the signs show up in their relationships, or who can they even turn to for help if they're asking?
Yeah, I would say to try to find a trusted adult, someone in their life. It doesn't have to be someone in the home. If it is someone in the home, great. Someone in school, maybe someone in the community that they trust and feel that they can open up to. There are also tons of hotlines. There are places that they can text to get information. And so it's really accessible to young people, and it's communication in the way that they receive it best.
Wow. I think you, again, also like all of our other guests, shared so many gems with us, resources as well. And it's beautiful that this conversation is starting early for our teens. So thank you so much, MaryAnn, for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, perfect. To learn more about these programs, please go to their website, risingground.org. We've come to the end of our show today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us, and you, the viewers, for tuning in. If you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the recablecast at 5 and 8 p.m. tonight on Optimum Channel 67 and Verizon Fios 33, or watch anytime on the web at BronxNet.org. You can catch a brand new episode of Open with Darren, Jamie on Wednesday, and with Rina Valentin on Friday. I'm Jonathan Calixto. Stay inspired, stay informed, and stay safe. Until next time.